and Public Affairs. Mr. Lucas, may I help you?
Yes, hi. My name is Eric Gandini. I'm calling from Sweden.
Yes.
Me and my friend, we're doing a film, and we would like to visit Guantanomo Bay. So we wonder if it's possible somehow.
Yeah, it is possible. Let me give you a different number, Eric, for a U.S. Air Force Captain Crossan, Tom Crossan. Public Affairs, Cap Crossan.
Hello, my name is Eric Gandini. I'm calling from Sweden. Regarding visits at Guantanamo base.
Yeah. We have flights out of Puerto Rico just about every Wednesday. And they're 2-night flights. Okay. From Puerto Rico to Guantanamo, the flights are free. You will be required to pay $12 a night per person for the lodging. Okay. And then whatever expenses you incur for telephone or internet access and meals. You'll be able to see the camp in which they are detained in. You'll see it from somewhat of a distance, and you'll be able to photograph it.
All right, this is very good information.
Yeah. I thank you very much. I appreciate the call, and if you have any more problems or questions, give me a call.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.
I think when I leave here at Guantanamo Bay, one of the most interesting experiences that I've had is actually having the opportunity to escort media around. It's interesting talking to people from all around the world, from Korea, from Sweden, from the Middle East, from North America, from all around the world, just having the opportunity to speak with different people and, just hear how they feel about the detainees here, how they feel about world politics. It's an enriching experience, and I feel like...
This is Lieutenant Moss, and his job is to show us that everything is okay here. But we have come here because we want to know what is really going on at Guantanamo. Filming isn't allowed inside of the prison camp, so we're thinking of shooting with a hidden camera. Unfortunately, that's just not gonna happen. We know there is a Swedish guy held inside here. His name is Mehdi. He'll be released later, and when he returns to Sweden, he'll give only one press conference.
Därmed lämnar jag ordet fritt för frågor. Du först.
Du säger att du har varit där i 5 månader i Afghanistan. Alltså vad levde du på? Var bodde du? Hos vem?
Hur finansierar du alla de här resorna? Jag tror det var 6 resor på 2 år. Var befann du dig den 11 september 2001? Vad var din reaktion då?
Var du mer positivt inställd till bin Laden och al-qaeda?
Träffade du al-qaeda-anhängare? Har du burit vapen? Vad tycker du om al-qaeda?
Vad tycker du om bin Laden?
And after that, he won't talk to us. He refuses to talk to anyone who has anything to do with the media. But to tell this story, we have to go back in time, to long before the press conference, when Mehdi was still held at Guantanamo, and when there was only the official version, as you could hear it on the radio station Voice of America.
Taliban and al-qaeda detainees are being scrutinized and interrogated at the U.S. naval base at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Only a select few American servicemen and U.S. officials have direct contact with the prisoners. U.S. officials insist the detainees are not tortured or subject to any cruel treatment during interrogation sessions. In fact, they say some interrogators go out of their way to make the captives feel comfortable, hoping to coax information from them in an easygoing fashion.
Everything is perfectly fine at Guantanamo. The prisoners and interrogators collaborate, and information is being gained in a friendly atmosphere. And exactly right here, the story could have ended if it wasn't for this man who we saw in a public square in Stockholm. He's Mehdi's father, and he had a feeling that things were not good at Guantanamo.
1,2, 2,4, 1,80, 40-45 grader varmt. I'm lost. Händerna, fötterna, dag och natt. Helt stängt. Får inte prata, får inte se, får inte höra.
But Mehdi's father didn't know that it was the other way around. It was Mehdi, together with most of the other prisoners, that had in fact decided to stop talking. Rumor now was that it wasn't 40 degrees hot at Guantanamo anymore, that the army had started exposing prisoners to freezing temperatures to get them to talk.
What I will do is urge him as a father to reach out, to communicate with his son via letter, which we will transport, and ask his son to just cooperate, come clean. This will help him determine his future.
Pierre Richard Prosper, the man with the good advice and puppy dog eyes. He is an expert of international law and assigned by the president to tour around and visit the countries who have citizens being held at Guantanamo. Here he was in Sweden to persuade Mehdi's father to convince his son to start to talk again.
Well, that's right. We're applying the Geneva Conventions, but he, by his conduct, has not earned the benefits or privileges to be labeled a prisoner of war. A prisoner of war is someone who is part of a responsible command or army, is someone who wears a uniform and a distinctive sign clearly, and it is someone who follows the laws and customs of war.
Tänk de hela tiden låst dag och natt. Men jag, som är i hans far. Astaghfirullah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. Allahu akbar, Allahu akbar.
We feel that by virtue of other information that we have, that he's a threat to our security. So we're holding on to him until we determine that he's not a threat to our security, or that we take other measures if we do determine that that's the case. He has the keys, basically, to his own prospects.
By cooperating.
Yes. He has simply not answered anything. He doesn't talk to the people. He's not accused of a crime. If he were accused of a crime, and if he is later accused of a crime, he will be tried in a court, and he will have a lawyer and all of the usual due process. We're a government that believes in the laws. We're a founder of the United Nations. We have a strong constitution. We have a great Supreme Court that has the ability to order even the president or the military to conform to good legal practice. But remember, he isn't accused of a crime.
Jag tycker att min son, han är ju en snäll kille. Ja, 100%. Och det är jag som har uppfostrat honom. Kallar jag för mor och far. Jag har ingen fel på honom. 100%. Det är ingen fel på min grabb.
We need to keep in mind that the people in U.S. custody are not there because they stole a car or robbed a bank. That's not why they're there. They're not common criminals. They're enemy combatants and terrorists who are being detained for acts of war against our country. And that is why different rules have to apply.
Different rules? Why did they need to define the prisoners at Guantanamo? The answer was that when the prison camp first opened, it was never intended to hold prisoners of war. Its purpose was to extract information to prevent future terrorist attacks.
وقد أصاب بوش عندما قال إما معنا وإما مع الإرهاب أي إما مع الصليبية وإما مع الإسلام.
The kind of people held at Guantanamo include terrorist trainers, bomb makers, extremist recruiters and financiers, bodyguards of Osama bin Laden, and would-be suicide bombers. They are not common car thieves. They are believed to be determined killers.
As far as I know, the head of the International Red Cross, for example, people who are experts on human rights issues say bluntly and clearly what you're doing is against all kind of human rights conventions.
But there was a fundamental problem
Well, the only thing I know for certain is that these are bad people.
The United States had at one point in time signed the Geneva Convention, and there it stated that prisoners of war need only to answer 4 questions: name, rank, nationality, and ID number. 4 simple questions won't get you very far when you need answers to hundreds of questions. And a prison camp full of prisoners of war who only need to answer 4 questions is a useless prison camp. But there were no other rules. And leaders from countries who had citizens at Guantanamo started to get a little worried.
Prime Minister, the first matter he brought up was the Swedish prisoner. He was very forthright, very frank, and very concerned about the prisoner.
The situation seemed to be out of control.
Guantanamo Bay.
Guantanamo Bay.
Guantanamo Bay.
Guantanamo Bay.
Guantanamo Bay has become, in fact, simply a large interrogation camp.
What nobody knew was that the president had written a letter that only the president's inner circle were aware of. And in the letter he wrote that there was a new paradigm in the world, and the rules were no longer defined by the United States, but by terrorists. This new world order got him thinking, and after extensive discussion, he came to the simple conclusion: the Geneva Convention could not be applied to terrorists. And for that reason, he came up with a new word for the prisoners at Guantanamo: unlawful combatants. No one had heard this word before, and no one knew what consequences this word would come to have.
Our nation is at war. Our economy is in recession. And the civilized world faces unprecedented dangers. Yet the state of our union has never been stronger. The American flag flies again over our embassy in Kabul. Terrorists who once occupied Afghanistan now occupy cells at Guantanamo Bay.
Currently the weather in Guantanamo, scattered clouds, temperature last hour of 86 degrees, and the winds out of the north at 12 miles per hour.
My name is Lieutenant Moss. I'll be one of your escorts during your stay here. Petty Officer First Class Sherwood is another one of your escorts. The wildlife here is very unique. You'll see iguanas, and you'll see hutillas. Hutillas are also known as banana rats. With the iguanas, please don't feed them. They may come up to you because people do feed them. They can be very friendly, and at times their friendliness could turn into a bite. So, you can observe them, but please no feeding the iguanas, and be careful when you're around them. I'm sure you'll probably want to get some footage of one. We also do have boas here. You probably won't see one, but you never know. So that's pretty much our wildlife.
Yes, on your right-hand side, you can see the Guantanamo Bay golf course. It's a 9-hole golf course.
We're at Guantanamo, or Gitmo as the army nicknamed it. We still haven't met Mehdi. He's still being held in here. Most of the time, we spend on this bus touring all the recreational activities available to the soldiers stationed here.
On your right-hand side, you're going to see the baseball and football fields that we have available for the MWR activities. That's morale and welfare, recreation.
When the operation first started out here, it was something that was new. And just like with everything, you want to constantly improve it. And the U.S. military puts a lot of emphasis on pride in trying to improve the living standards for its troops to keep morale high. We're talking about opening up a Kentucky Fried Chicken or a Pizza Hut on base, and we have a McDonald's here now, we have a Subway here, so slowly we're improving the condition of the soldiers, and this is just part of it right here.
But we haven't come here to take part in the soldiers' delight over the variety of fast food. We want to know what's really going on in here. Here we are outside of the gates to Camp Delta, where the prisoners are kept. The white guy is Sergeant Barry Johnson, the man behind the scenes who have the authorities over our guides. The black man is Colonel Adolph McQueen, the man responsible for camp security.
Can you tell us as much as you can tell us about how the detainees are living, how they're doing?
We are American soldiers, and in being American soldiers, we come with a way of life, a democracy that provides the rights to people to be treated humanely, fair, firm, and consistent.
How do you do that?
Because I'm a military professional. And as a military professional, I've been given a mission. And that mission says that I will safely secure the detainees within Camp Delta and that I will provide a humane treatment.
Because I just want to... Yeah, I know.
Last question.
Last question, okay. The family, for example, the family of the Swedish detainee, you know, they don't know why he's here. They thought that he went to study. They have no information. They haven't been able to see him for a year. What would you tell them if you met them? What would you say to them?
I would tell them from the detention standpoint, each and every detainee here is being treated humanely. We allow them to write 2 letters and 4 postcards a month here. They're getting 3 meals a day. We allow them to practice their religion in the confinement that they're in, and that if they have any types of medical issues or concerns, those are addressed appropriately, and the treatment here is always fair, firm, and consistent.
När kan du komma här?
Kanske ungefär mer än en vecka i alla fall.
Om en vecka?
Kanske någon tid.
We're still trying to convince Mehdi to take this opportunity to tell us what happened. But something always seemed to come up, making it difficult for us to meet. But now he's promised to help us to get in touch with other prisoners released from Guantanamo. This is Jamal from Manchester, who was with Mehdi in Guantanamo. And there is Mehdi, who still has not decided if he wants to talk.
How did you meet each other?
You know, I don't even remember the first meeting. I just remember us speaking. I know, because what they would do, the Americans would put you next to each different people to see if you know that person from before, or if that person speaks English. They'd put you next to that person to see, you know, is there any connection with these guys from, you know, maybe they might have known each other from before.
Do you think that was part of a method to...
Oh, yeah, because people were constantly moved around.
What got to you personally? Was it the cold treatment? Or
I wouldn't say.
The medicine or what?
I won't answer that, because I wouldn't like to let them know. So I'll refuse to answer that one and skip it.
But because for me, the most crucial thing here is to be locked without knowing when you are released.
Maybe.
It seems to be a lot harder to talk about what happened to them in Guantanamo.
Yeah.
Especially for Mehdi. Maybe because he's devoted 2 years to keeping silent.
Alltså, de började använda mer fysisk tortyr och så här mot mig. Och jag hade samarbete med amerikanerna och pratade med dem allt vad de frågade och ville ha svar på. Ungefär 1,5 år. Men sedan blev det för mycket så jag slutade prata med dem helt enkelt ungefär i 2 år. Och de började använda de här metoderna som ni har hört. Att jag har blivit i förhörsrummen får vara där ungefär 12 timmar, 14 timmar. Och de hade satt på aircondition ungefär 13 minusgrader.
course, it's not nice. You're talking to the guard, and this guy's laughing with you, and then the next day he's beating up on someone who's next to you, and this guy's suffering. So, yeah, I did the same thing. I stopped talking to the guard.
My name is Sergeant Andrew Flynn. I am in the 438th Military Police Company, and I'm from Murray, Kentucky.
No with the guards, no with the integrators, no. I felt better like this.
My name is Tessa Laura Ann Frost, and I'm from Toledo, Ohio.
My name is Specialist Marco. I'm from Connecticut.
Do you know if the Swedish guy is there? Have you seen him?
I personally...
Actually, I can tell you that we don't comment on specific detainees or specific nationalities. So that question to him, he wouldn't be able to answer for you.
How do you feel about the detainees?
I just go and do my job. I really don't have any feelings towards them, for them. I just go in there, serve my country, and I leave.
The soldiers at Guantanamo don't talk, and neither do the prisoners. Maybe it has something to do with this man. His name is General Miller, and he's the commanding officer at Guantanamo. He's agreed to give us a short interview because he's in an unusually good mood.
JTF Guantanamo's mission is to detain enemy combatants and then to gain intelligence from them to be able to win the global war on terrorism. And so we are detaining these enemy combatants in a humane manner that is appropriate to that, and in accordance as much as we can with the Geneva Convention. We work very hard to ensure that the detainees are maintained and detained in this manner.
But what's wrong with the Geneva Convention? Why can't that be applied?
The detainees who are here that are being held by JTF Guantanamo are enemy combatants, and by the decision of the government, are provided only portions of that coverage by the Geneva Convention. But we are maintaining them and detaining them in a humane manner, as much accordance with the Geneva Convention as possible.
When we're doing this interview with Miller, we're not aware of how important he is to this story. Because no other single person has had as much influence over how the prisoners at Guantanamo are treated. But what we do know when we're standing here is that Miller hasn't always been in charge of the base. Before we left, we found a short article about General Rick Backus, who was in command before Miller. Backus was fired under very weird circumstances, and the only ones who seemed willing to speculate why is military corruption, an organization consisting of ex-military personnel who investigate corruption within the army.
Okay, all I can say to you, because we're on the telephone, all I can say to you is we have a network of sources that we call CIs, confidential informants.
On Guantanamo?
I can't say on the telephone. Backus, he's a one-star general, brigadier general. He ran into trouble with a two-star general who is in charge of the interrogations. I think his mistake, he complained about policy dealing with those prisoners.
He would come and sit down in front of the cage and actually speak to the detainees that were there in the cages. And the soldiers, I don't think that the American soldiers were too pleased to see their big general come down and sit down on the ground in front.
They say that Bacchus got fired because he was too nice to the prisoners. And they also say that he was opposed to a secret list of unconventional interrogation methods.
Now, word filtering out of this camp is that some of the interrogations may, I don't have proof, be violations of human rights or what. We're not sure.
Were you here when General Bacchus was here?
No, we came just after he had left.
Do you know why he left?
I have no idea.
Okay. Have you heard anything about why?
Nothing that I would want to repeat because I don't know that it's true.
Okay. And as far as the history of General Bacchus, and all we know as far as everyone here is on a tour of 6 months, and he finished his 6-month tour and he went home. If there's anything else that you folks may have heard or may be looking for, you can ask both him personally, and you can ask probably maybe his command.
We call up Bacchus' old press secretary at Southern Command.
I don't know how to get in touch with him. He's no longer in the military. He's retired.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he has. He retired earlier this month. So, to be honest with you, I have no way of getting in touch with him either.
But Bacchus has not retired. He has been reassigned to a desk job.
I can give you his phone number.
Okay.
It's area code 401-253-8000.
This is Rick Bacchus.
Hi, my name is Eric Gandini. I'm a filmmaker. And I would really like to ask you a few questions about Guantanamo, about what happened there.
Well, as you know, that I'm not assigned there anymore. And any public affairs inquiries, I'm referring to the Southern Command Public Affairs officer.
Huss, you don't talk about Guantanamo?
At this point in time, I'm not, no.
Not off the record or...
No.
Okay.
Thank you for calling.
This is not the end of the story about Bacchus. We're gonna contact him again, even if it's just a small pawn in a much bigger game.
Tonight, the United States of America makes the following demands on the Taliban. Deliver to United States authorities all the leaders of al-qaeda who hide in your land. None of these demands were met. And now, the Taliban will pay a price. The security of the world requires disarming Saddam Hussein now. Saddam Hussein and his sons must leave Iraq within 48 hours. For the vast majority of Iraqi citizens, this event brings further assurance that the torture chambers and the secret police are gone forever.
But when these pictures from Saddam's notorious Abu Ghraib prison came out, it's clear that they had a scandal on their hands. Some say these methods originated in Guantanamo. We just haven't seen the pictures. Rumors have also begun to circulate. New rumors of interrogators using sex and hip-hop music to get people to crack.
Yeah, it depends on the actual person. Like, say, from people from... Say from me, for example, they wouldn't pay me rap because they wouldn't be doing no. Because obviously that's what I grew up on, so it's no big deal. But let's say to some of the brothers from Saudi or from Yemen who don't listen to any of that at all, it'd be more effective against these type of people. They were playing, I remember Fleetwood Mac, Matchbox 20, Chris Christopherson. They're the ones that I remember. But I also found out that when they used to play the music to the detainees, our prisoners in Iraq, that they were playing the same music. So I think they played some rap or tune to you, didn't they, Mehdi, I think, in interrogation. Constantly played the same.
Did they play rap to you?
Yeah.
Same cut again and again.
Same song all the time and all the time.
Vet du vem det var? Kommer inte ihåg vad den heter. Men de spelar så rap hela tiden.
Ja, hela tiden. Sån musik.
Did they ever use the sexual tactic during interrogation against you too?
Personally, no. Me personally, no. But I have met people who it's happened to and spoke to them.
Did they ever try that with you, Mehdi?
Ja, jag försökte med det.
På vilket sätt kan du förklara?
Ja, det var... De hade försökt massor med andra grejer och senare så skickade de in en tjej då. Som... hon hade vanlig så här militär uniform så här. Så hon kom till mig och började prata och så här och säga att hon kunde göra mycket för mig och så här och börja ta på mig och massera mig och ta på mig på vissa platser och så här. Och sen att hon kunde hjälpa mig med massor med grejer och så här. Och sen när hon kom ibland närmare vissa ställen så jag liksom så här liksom gjorde med händerna så här lite, försökte skydda mig lite så hon sitter lugnt och så här och liksom ja, i alla fall hon blir till slut förbannad när jag inte liksom alltså när jag inte blev intresserad eller jag inte blev gick inte med på hennes villkor och så här så hon gick ut efter ett tag. Och sen lämnade hon sa när du vill, det bara säga att du vill träffa, hon heter Silvia, sa hon. Säg bara när du vill, säg att du vill bara träffa mig så vi ska ordna allt och så. Sen gick hon.
Maybe that sounds like a prisoner's wet dream. To have a woman in uniform come in and give him a massage. But we are sure that the methods aren't used for the prisoner's comfort and convenience. What kind of bizarre interrogation methods are being used at Guantanamo? And what happens to the prisoners that are still being held there? And are these methods really sanctioned from above? Part of the answer comes thanks to the Abu Ghraib scandal in Iraq, which set off a storm of protests and a wave of investigations, which made public thousands of previously classified documents. Human rights activists all over the world begin taking measures to get prisoners released from Guantanamo.
Even in the Schlesinger report, you get a piece of paper like this, which is called Evolution of Interrogation Techniques, Guantanamo. These are techniques actually approved by our Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld. And if you read them, you get sickened by them.
Among all the documents, we find a story. A story that has its beginning in the fall of 2002. They have a problem at Guantanamo. The prisoners have stopped talking, and the old methods don't seem to be effective anymore. Now, they want to interrogate for 20-hour sessions, remove prisoners' clothes, let them stand naked in uncomfortable positions, make them wear hoods. They also want permission under medical supervision to lower the temperatures in interrogation rooms and take advantage of prisoners' phobias in order to get them to talk. For example, a prisoner's fear of dogs.
So here you have our Secretary of Defense authorizing the use of dogs. And of course, the word phobias is particularly interesting because that has to do with the religious fact for Muslims that dogs are unclean.
What later happens in the interrogation room, when the new methods are implemented, only the prisoners know, and their interrogators. The problem is the interrogators at Guantanamo don't give interviews, with one exception, Tori Nelson. He's featured as a witness in an investigation about the photos. Apparently, he also worked at Guantanamo when the request for tougher methods were sent. He agrees to meet with us and explain the methods used there.
18 to 19, change of scenery up and change of scenery down. This is where you take the person out of the environment that they're used to. And if you put them in a change of scenery up, maybe you put them in a nicer area. Change of scenery down, meaning that you're going to put them into an isolation chamber, cold conditions, raw sewage smell, or something like that, where just the conditions are much worse. Face slap, stomach slap, if you can hit them enough so that it shocks them, especially if it gets a loud slap, but you don't actually break any bones, cut them, bruise them, then that's an effective technique, is the way that they would usually refer to it as. The hooding is actually placed over their head, and the interrogator shouts their questions at them through the hood. A prolonged standing makes someone lean against a wall in an uncomfortable position. If they were to do it for 5 seconds, it wouldn't be too much of a bother. After 5-10 minutes, it really starts to wear down their physical resistance. Environmental manipulation, if they come from warmer climates, putting them into a cold room, almost like a freezer for us. False flag, when interrogators will come in and pretend to be from another country where the person could face the threat of physical torture, abuse, long-term incarceration, those sorts of things. Increased anxiety by use of aversions, if they had phobias of heights or of certain animals, you might introduce that to make them uncomfortable. All of these are, in my humble opinion, completely ineffective and detrimental to the overall mission, which is to gain actionable intelligence, to gain willing cooperation. You could use these techniques if you got 10 people to maybe give you a little bit of information using these techniques. I guarantee you I could get one person to give more information if I was to convince that one person that we're the good guys and that we're their friends. Throughout the time that I was there was pressure from above for results. They weren't worried about, are you abiding by Geneva Conventions and such. That wasn't on the daily requests from higher command. The requests that were coming down the pipeline were, how many reports have you written on what subjects? What information have you gotten? What cooperation have you gotten? Which sources have become key sources? That's what they were worried about, results. Because their mentality was, well, the longer that we've got them in detention, the more people we're going to get to break, right? And it's just a matter of time to get these guys to break, right? So you should be getting more results, not fewer results, the longer that you hold them.
It's difficult for Tori Nelson to get work as an interrogator nowadays. Maybe because he was in Abu Ghraib in Iraq when the photos surfaced. Or maybe because he speaks so openly about the methods.
When I got to Abu Ghraib in late 2003, some of these techniques that are being recommended and just preliminarily approved a year prior are now considered to be norm. Until,
for example, which?
Use of dogs, sleep deprivation, stress positions, meal management, light exposure, noise exposure. I don't even think those were actually listed, but maybe they are. These were techniques that were experimental at first, but then later on became commonplace.
has Guantanamo become a testing ground for interrogation techniques, which are then exported to other places. It can't be a coincidence that the same things we see in photos from Abu Ghraib in Iraq are described in documents from Guantanamo in Cuba. But what is the connection? And who exactly sent the request to use tougher methods? It appears to be the same two-star general who Bacchus had problems with. And if you look at the date, the request was sent October 11, only 2 days after Bacchus left. And 1 month later, neither Bacchus nor the two-star general are still at the base. A new man has taken command, General Miller.
The interrogation techniques that we use in JTF Guantanamo are approved by the senior leadership of our government.
Shortly after Miller took command, Rumsfeld personally approved the request for tougher interrogation methods. He had only one objection. The inquiry requested permission to force prisoners to stand in stress position for up to 4 hours. In the margin, Rumsfeld himself scribbled, "I stand 8 to 10 hours a day." Why is standing limited to just 4 hours?
Was it like that when Bacchus left and he was soft, that's the picture of him, then down a short period, and then came Miller, who really sort of started the harsher techniques?
Miller, I believe, had no difficulty with pushing from his own office to get more results. And that was no bullshit aside, this man wanted everybody to break. And believe that the only right that the people down there at Guantanamo had was the right to give us intelligence. That was the only right.
We're in the business of winning the global war on terrorism. We also conduct ourselves as Americans always do. Everything that goes on in Camp Delta is a representation of what we think makes America great.
Did Miller have something to do with Bacchus being fired? And if that's the case, why did he want Bacchus out of the way? What had Bacchus seen, and how much did he know? We decide to call up Bacchus again, and this time he is more cooperative.
This is Rick Bacchus.
I called you actually a long time ago. At that time, you didn't want to talk.
I'm not at liberty to give any interviews at this particular point in time.
There are so many rumors about you that we don't want to end up telling things in a wrong way.
What is the timeline for your story?
But in order to speak freely with us, he needs permission from the Pentagon.
Is it the Southern Command or the Department of Defense?
It would be Department of Defense in my case.
Okay, and if they give you permission to participate, will you be available for an interview?
Then I would make myself available, correct.
Okay, really good.
Apparently the General Bacchus needs to get permission from is a general officer who is the chief of staff there at Southern Command.
I apologize for the runaround, but we have absolutely no authority to grant General Bacchus the opportunity to talk to you. This is something very closely controlled at the highest level, which is OSD Public Affairs.
We wouldn't advise a former commander to talk about his time at Guantanamo.
But can you basically deny him to give interview?
I can't tell him what to do. He's a free citizen.
Okay.
But it sounds to me like he has told you that if we approve it, in other words, we authorize it or we advise that it's the right thing to do, that he'll do it. I'm not advising that.
Why does the Pentagon want to silence Bacchus? Who fired him and why? And who was it that took the interrogation methods from Guantanamo, Cuba, to Abu Ghraib in Iraq? Maybe the answer can be found somewhere else. After the scandal in Abu Ghraib, when the photos came out, command of the prison camp was taken over by none other than General Miller. Miller was sent to Abu Ghraib to clean up the mess after the scandal and make sure that no abuse against prisoners would ever happen again. But the person Miller replaces is General Janice Karpinski. Many consider her to be the most responsible for what went on in the prison in Iraq, since she was the commanding officer at the time, and it was her soldiers posing in the pictures.
Hello?
Hello? Janice? Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, but there's an echo.
This is Eric Candini calling from Sweden.
Hi, Eric. How are you?
Fine, how are you? I wasn't expecting to find you, actually. I mean, I know this is not maybe your area of interest, but you heard about the dispute between Bacchus and Danlave because of interrogation techniques.
I think that's why Bacchus was fired.
You think so?
Yes. And see, everybody down at Guantanamo Bay under Miller, they were all required to sign a formal statement from the government, which is called a non-disclosure statement.
Mm-hmm.
And that means when they leave Guantanamo Bay, they can't discuss anything that they've seen or heard or participated in.
Mm-hmm. I have to meet you. Are you willing to say this? I mean, are you willing to give me an interview?
Yes, that's why I agreed to speak to you.
Okay. Where do you live? I mean, about?
I live in South Carolina, which is right on the coast.
Rumor has it that Karpinski is now in an open conflict with the army, after being demoted and relieved of her title as a general. Not for the abuses in the prison, she's been found not guilty of those, but because 3 years ago she was said to have shoplifted a perfume bottle. She's even said to hate General Miller, and that she accuses him of the abuses in Abu Ghraib.
How's your trip so far?
Good. Hi.
Hi.
Eric.
Janice.
Tariq. Saleh. Hi.
Tariq?
Tariq.
That's not a Swedish name, is it?
I'm half Egyptian, half Swedish.
Very nice. And who's the cameraman?
This is Lucas Eisenhower. Yes,
Hi, Lucas.
He's actually American. He's half American. Like, I'm half Italian, he's half Egyptian.
So I have the United Nations here.
Yeah, it's the melting pot. All right.
Come out of the cave. You want to come out? Come on. Come on. You got to come out. Okay, Casey, come on.
Janice lives alone with a parrot, who seems to be her only friend right now. Like Bacchus, she was chief over the military police. And like him, she also came in conflict with the interrogation leaders. And just like Bacchus, she was replaced by General Miller. Could she know something about how interrogation methods developed at Guantanamo could show up in photos from Abu Ghraib in Iraq?
It's not a coincidence. If the request for more aggressive techniques, if the memorandum was forwarded after Bacchus left, then part of the reason he left was because he would have blown the whistle on them. Here's a guy who is trained as a military police officer, knows Geneva Conventions, knows crossing the line, knows the limitations, and is forced to command military police detention operations in Guantanamo Bay that he discovers, or maybe in the process of his assignment there, they determine that Geneva Conventions no longer apply down there.
Have you met him? Have you met Bacchus?
No, I have not. And it's almost eerie how silent he's been, because he was one of the first people I thought about. You know, I'm going to call Bacchus and ask him what the heck happened down in Guantanamo Bay that made you leave? But he didn't just leave. They said that he got fired, that Miller fired him.
Wait. I mean, suppose that Miller fired first Bacchus and then he fired you. Why do you talk?
Because I didn't sign a non-disclosure statement, number one. And number two, I know the truth. I don't know all of it, obviously, but I know the truth. And I know I didn't know what was going on in cell block 1A and B, and I know that they didn't let me know because they knew I would have screamed about it. And I know that the MPs that were there were directed to do what they did. Now, someone senior to them made them to believe that it was okay. Somebody who claimed to be an interrogator from up there, he said, ma'am, the real purpose of those pictures was to make the interrogations easier. The plan was to show him a photograph and say, you recognize Joe here at the bottom of the pile? He's your friend, right? Start talking or tomorrow you'll be with him. That kind of technique.
We all agree that we don't feel like we were doing things that we weren't supposed to because we were told to do them. We think everything was justified because we were instructed to do this and to do that.
Any apologies?
Sir, I was a soldier, and if I did wrong, here I am.
Any regrets?
No, ma'am.
Talked to the Secretary of Defense about this morning, by the way. I said, find the truth, and then tell the Iraqi people and the world the truth. We have nothing to hide. We believe in transparency because we're a free society. That's what free societies do.
The actions of the soldiers in those photographs are totally unacceptable and un-American. As the senior official responsible for this department, I intend to take any and all actions as may be needed to find out what happened and to see that appropriate steps are taken.
The investigation went quickly, and the only ones prosecuted were the 7 soldiers pictured in the photos. And then Miller was sent in to clean up after the scandal.
Yes, I would like to personally apologize to the people of Iraq for the actions of the small number of leaders and soldiers who violated our policy and may have committed criminal acts. We are investigating those acts as rapidly as possible and will bring those responsible to the bar of justice.
But according to Karpinski, General Miller had already been in Abu Ghraib earlier, before the pictures of abuse came out. He came from Guantanamo on a secret mission.
General Miller never mentioned it, but we found out later that he actually came on the same plane as Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld. He did this in brief with all of the interrogators and the commander of the Military Intelligence Brigade and General Fast and the people from her staff that were involved in interrogations. And he started out by saying that he was there to assess their operations and to help them to achieve more actionable intelligence. He said, I think you treat the prisoners too well. You're too gentle with them. He said, you really need to treat them like dogs, because if you treat them any better than that, you've effectively lost control of the interrogation. I said, the MPs are not trained to enhance your interrogations. They don't have those skills. They haven't been doing those things. The interrogators are handling in the interrogations exclusively. And he said, I'm going to give them all. I mean, he was waving his hands like this at me, like, this is not your concern. Don't be concerned about this at all. He said, I'm leaving training material. They're going to get all the training and instructions they need. I'm leaving CDs and printed instructions. You don't have to worry about this. And before that meeting was over, he said, with the lessons that they learned and their techniques from Guantanamo Bay and in other locations, he was going to Gitmoize Abu Ghraib.
This is the report that General Miller and his 17 experts from Gitmo left after their visit to Abu Ghraib, just 1 month before the scandal broke out. Here you can read his suggestions on how he would like to make the interrogations more effective. For example, he wanted to use the military police, who previously were only used as prison guards, to prepare the prisoners for interrogation. And here is an overhead found in Abu Ghraib that no one wants to take responsibility for, with the interrogation methods. The same methods developed at Guantanamo. And here is Miller being questioned by a senator about his visit to Abu Ghraib before the documents come out.
When you were dispatched by Secretary Cambone and General Boykin to go to Iraq, did they give you any specific instructions about increasing the aggressiveness of interrogations?
Sir, I was tasked to go to conduct assistance visit by the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They tasked Southern Command, who then tasked JTF Guantanamo to put the team together.
Did your team specifically brief that these methods could be used in that prison that are contrary to the Geneva Convention?
Sir, no methods contrary to the Geneva Convention were presented any time by the assistance team that I took to CJTF 7.
Everything started to change in interrogations at Abu Ghraib after Miller visited. And he has said, and his defense mechanism is, I was only there to assist. I felt betrayed by the Army. I felt that they were trying to use me as the fall guy, as the scapegoat for this situation, and I felt betrayed by the Army. Those soldiers knew what they were doing. They were following instructions. They were made to believe that those instructions were valid. And I can tell you, I knew what I was doing, but I wasn't involved in interrogations. If I'd been in control of that prison and knew what was going on out there, it wouldn't have gone on out there.
Even though Karpinski and Bacchus lost control, they both kept quiet as the new methods were introduced. Maybe there are no real heroes in this story. Only people with more or less control. And some people who seems to be outside of any control or regulation. When we read the documents, we discover a strange little detail. In the scandal surrounding Abu Ghraib, it's not just soldiers in the investigation. There were also civilians involved in the abuse against prisoners, so-called contractors that for some reason never were brought to trial. But the question is, what exactly is a contractor? Here are pictures from Fallujah in Iraq of a lynching of American soldiers. But something about this picture isn't what it seems to be. Those aren't regular soldiers being lynched, but contractors from a privately owned company called Blackwater. The man in the red tie is Paul Bremer. He was Janis Karpinski's boss in Iraq. The man walking beside him with a machine gun isn't a soldier. He's a contractor from Blackwater.
We're talking here about a mercenary. We're talking about a hired hand, a hired gun. And when you have, in Iraq, a man with a gun who is hired to use that weapon, you're talking about a soldier without laws and without orders. There are no rules or regulations governing the use of these people.
We wanted to get in touch with someone at Blackwater who can explain to us what exactly a contractor does.
Thank you for calling
calling Blackwater. This is Diana. How may I help you?
I was trying to reach Mr. Bartali with no success, and I wonder if there's someone else I can talk to regarding press issues.
Unfortunately, he is the only person. I think he's just been so busy. We've had many calls for him. Did you leave him a voice message?
We've called Blackwater so many times that we lost count, but they don't seem to want to talk to us. Here are pictures from one of their PR events, but we get the feeling that it isn't enough to understand what the contractor really does.
Everybody on the leadership, from the leadership team down, is absolutely committed to doing the right thing, to doing the best we can do in support of freedom and democracy.
But it appears that the coalition doesn't just use Blackwater. The fact is, there are over 20,000 private contractors in Iraq. They constitute the second largest force after the American Army. And hundreds of firms around the world hire out private contractors.
Hello, you speak English? Hello? No. Okay, Mr. Pavel Konstantinescu? Hello?
One such firm is the Romanian security company Bidepa. We're in Bucharest, where Bidepa will show us what their services include.
Hello, Alex.
Hi,
Eric.
How are you? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Group in Iraq. All in Iraq.
We work like a private company in all other countries, in the West.
What made you decide to go into the private?
In the private system have more mobility. Why? Because all over the world, military system have the rules, not left, not right, only.
They have just returned from an assignment in Iraq. They worked there for the coalition forces. The man on the right was killed in an ambush during the last assignment, and Carlo, on the left, received serious gunshot wounds.
What's the main difference from being a soldier and being a Bidepa?
Not difference.
No? No difference?
It's the same mentality.
Everybody's same. And everybody, we have the guns, everybody's military.
So what we've got is a situation where we have thousands of armed Westerners in Iraq using their weapons without any rules of engagement, without any law behind them. There is no law for them.
But do you have, rules of engagement? Like the Americans with rules of engagement, like what to do and...
The rules is not in the paper, it's in the heart.
"40 mercenaries were killed in 1 week. Not a single story appeared in the paper. The coalition needs these people because they want to reduce their casualties. In a sense, we're using freelance mercenaries as sandbags to protect not only our soldiers, but the casualty figures of our soldiers as well."
At Guantanamo, do you think there were contractors there too?
Contractors just started to be used right towards the end of my tour in Guantanamo, and there was only one or two that I saw when I left. Didn't see really any problem with the contractor issue just because of the fact that it was such a small percentage. When we're talking about Abu Ghraib, though, the percentage goes from maybe 5 or 10% of the overall force up to 50% of the actual interrogation and analysis force there.
You were at Abu Ghraib as a soldier?
No. At Abu Ghraib, I was a civilian contractor.
We realize how hard it is to understand this new world order. Contractors, detainees, unlawful combatants. new categories of people that didn't exist before. Soldiers from private companies interrogate soldiers from a private organization in a prison camp located on an island outside of the law. The new concepts become just empty words.
I mean, let's look at it this way. Think of a normal conflict. We're in an unconventional war. Think of a conflict, for example, the one in Iraq. Think of the Balkans. Think back to World War II. When you take people captive, you're allowed to hold them during the course of hostilities. There's a legal basis for that. This is the same principle that is being applied here. The only difference is that we are in more of an unconventional war, where the war is against a private organization rather than a state. I mean, let's look at it this way. Think of a normal conflict. We're in an unconventional war, where the war is against a private organization rather than a state. That is the only difference. Al-Qaeda wears no uniform. Al-Qaeda does not carry their arms openly. Al-Qaeda does not belong to a responsible command. And Al-Qaeda clearly does not follow the laws and customs of war. We are in more of an unconventional war, where the war is against a private organization rather than a state. I mean, let's look at it this way. Al-Qaeda wears no uniform. Al-Qaeda does not carry their arms openly. Al-Qaeda does not belong to a responsible command. And Al-Qaeda clearly does not follow the laws and customs of war. We are in more of an unconventional war, where the war is against a private organization.
Each and every detainee here is being treated humanely.
We always treat them humanely.
Treated humanely, treated humanely.
In a humane manner.
Humane living conditions.
We treat the detainees humanely.
And in the best spirit.
In the spirit of the Geneva Convention. In the spirit of the Geneva Convention.
In accordance with. As much accordance with the Geneva Convention as possible.
Det är många som uttrycker misstro mot att du bara skulle ha råkat vara på fel plats vid fel tidpunkt. Vad kan du säga till dem?
Jag förstår inte. Jag tror inte på det. Ja? Jag tror inte på det.
Vad vill du säga till de som inte tror på dig? På din historia?
Det är kanske andra medfångar som kanske kommer ut senare och de kanske kan göra det starkare.
Jag menar det här med Afghanistan, varför du var där och...
Okay, basically, in this area over here, we have Camp 4. Camp 4 opened in March, beginning of March, and the Camp 4 is for detainees who are cooperating and detainees that are getting closer to be released.
Sorry, one second.
Okay.
What is it, these voices we can hear from here?
Okay, the voices that you hear are the voices of detainees in the camp. And one reason why you can hear them so well is because in the nighttime it's very quiet out here. There are not as many vehicles moving. So because it's so quiet in this area, you can hear the voices of the detainees.
What do they say?
Their units are 8 by 8 with...
No, sorry, what do they say? I mean,
what do they say? They have the opportunity to speak to one another. So So I would imagine that they're talking to one another. Some of them may be praying. Some of them are just talking. They may be talking to someone further down, yelling towards them. So just normal conversation. And sometimes you do hear prayer, the call to prayer, or just chattering or prayer time.
What happens to the prisoners still kept at Guantanamo? And what happens to those who are released? Mehdi was detained for 2 years without ever being prosecuted. But he doesn't believe in our search for justice. He believes the only justice to be found will be given by God. And this is as close as we're ever going to get to him.
There have been nearly 400 separate media visits to Guantanamo Bay by more than 1,000 journalists. Additionally, some 180 congressional representatives have visited the facility. Arguably, no detention facility in the history of warfare has been more transparent or received more scrutiny than Guantanamo. Last year, the Department declassified...
We've been at Guantanamo, and we still don't know what really happens inside there. But maybe that's not the most important thing, because what we do know is enough. We know that there are still prisoners held inside there who have lost their right to remain silent, and who don't even know if they are ever going to get out.
General Miller, at Guantanamo, it's been reported that you developed a 72-point matrix for stress and duress. Lays out types of coercion, escalating levels. They include harsh or heat or cold, withholding food, hooding for days at a time, naked isolation and cold, dark cells. Is that correct?
Sir, that is categorically incorrect.
That never happened.
That is categorically incorrect.